Hi, welcome back to Through Nikki's Lens. I am Nikki and I'm here with another video for you. I want to talk to you about the various changes that have taken place recently in relation to study permit application requirements, as well as some changes for international students that are currently studying. So there are 4 things that I want to talk to you about specifically today. One of the things is in relation to the changes in terms of the funds requirements for applicants for a study permit, as well as the limit in terms of the 20 hours per week that international students are generally allowed to work, the measures that facilitate international students studying online or remotely, as well as proof of your acceptance into an institution in Canada for those who are intending to apply for a study permit. So let's get into it. The first video that I did was urging people who intended to come to Canada now, to do it now because there were many changes that were happening in relation to immigration. And lo and behold, on the 7th of December, the immigration minister went ahead and announced several changes to the international student program. One thing that changed that many people would consider as a major blow is the requirements of funds when you are applying for a study permit. Based on information on IRCC's website, changes to the funds requirements for applicants for a study permit has not been done since early 2000s. At that point, international students only needed to show $10,000 as living expenses for a single applicant, as well as to show that they're able to cover at least 1 year of their tuition. Many people would also recommend that international students or students applying for a study permit pay at least 1 term of their tuition. There are many things that might have caused that change to the funds requirements. And one thing has been, in my opinion at least, is the pandemic, which brought along many changes. Cost of living has gone up significantly, and many people will indicate that this might be because of the global economic crisis or the inflation that has been affecting so many of us, especially when it comes to accommodation, the cost of housing in Canada, and the housing crisis that persons are being faced with right now in Canada. One of the stated reasons for these changes is to protect international students and to ensure that the schools that they're actually going to are giving them a good experience. Several other changes are supposed to come into effect in the year of 2024 that will ensure that the institutions, the universities, the colleges that international students are going to are actually looking out for their best interests, are actually ensuring that they have the necessary resources, including accommodation for the students that they accept into their institutions. So let's go into the first point. So what is important for you to understand is that as of December 7, information on IRCC's website outlines that international student, a single applicant at this present moment before January 1, 2024, need to show 10,000 Canadian dollars for their living expenses. For the first family member, an additional 4,000, and every additional family member that is included in that application for the international student applicant needs to show 3,000 Canadian dollars. However, if you are planning to apply for a study permit, if you have your letter of acceptance and your other necessary documents, there is a small window that you can capitalize on using this $10,000, this initial $10,000 for your living expenses as an international student. However, as of January 1, 2024, any international student applicant that is submitting an application for a study permit must show $20,635. That's for the international student applicant. And for the second family member, $25,690. That's including the principal applicant. If a family of 3, it's $31,583. And then it seems to climb by about $4,000 or $5,000 as the number of people in their family increase. Up to 7 persons in a family, $54,611 Canadian dollars. If more than 7 persons, each additional family member must have $5,559 in addition. So bear this in mind, that it is the amount for one single applicant, $20,635 plus 1 year of your tuition. You need to show that you can take care of your travel expenses to get to Canada. And in most instances, it is recommended that a student applicant show that they have actually paid 1 term of their tuition fees. What does that mean for many people? Is your Canadian dream still a reality? From my personal experience, when I was applying for my study permit, it wasn't easy to come up with all the money that I needed to show that I could pay my tuition. I paid my down payment, that was a deposit actually, as well as to show that you have at least the $10,000 for your living expenses. When everything is so expensive today, in 2023 in December, I can't even imagine what it is like to find so much money to show that you have these funds. But in all honesty, it was a necessary thing that the government had to do, because many international students are currently here in Canada. They're having financial difficulties. They're struggling to pay their tuition. Persons are struggling to find their living expenses. If you really look at it, it was in early 2000 that they implemented this $10,000 requirement for your living expenses. 24 years later, it was warranted. The increase was warranted. Yes, I know that it might be harder for persons to prove that they can afford to study and live in Canada. But if you really come to Canada with the necessary funds that you need, with adequate money, adequate funds to do whatever it is that you need to cover your various expenses, I can guarantee you that you may have a better experience. You may not get a job right away. It is not the easiest thing right now to even find a survival job. So if you come with enough funds to pay your tuition, to cover your living expenses for a while, you may have a more seamless experience as an international student. You can focus more on your studies and don't have to worry too much about finding a job and trying to raise that funds that you need to pay your rent, to pay your tuition, to buy your books, to find food and things like that. The next thing is a 20-hour per week limitation for international students to work off campus. Many students have to work off campus because there might not be a lot of jobs on campus at the school that you're attending. So there was a temporary policy that was implemented some time ago that allowed some international students that are in Canada to work for more than 20 hours per week. At this present time, the temporary policy was set to expire at the end of December of 2023. There were talks that the government would have tried to do whatever they could to increase or to extend rather that deadline to allow international students to work for more than 20 hours per week for a longer period of time. At present, international students can work for more than 20 hours per week up until April of 2024. From my understanding though, there was a limitation to the persons that could have worked for more than 20 hours per week. What the government has done now is to include that all international students that are already in Canada, as well as applicants who already submitted their study permit as of December 7, 2023, can work for more than 20 hours per week. So this is actually for them to work for 30 hours per week off campus while classes are in session. I know this is great news for a lot of people, and I'm truly happy for you if you can find a job that will give you more than 20 hours per week, because the more you can earn right now, especially being in Canada, you would be able to do more than if you were limited to just 20 hours per week. However, what I will caution you is to ensure that you stay within that 30 hours per week limit and do not go beyond that, because it may be a problem for you when you apply for your post-graduation work permit if you work for more than the 30 hours per week off campus. So the government is also allowing students, international students, to study remotely or study online for a period of time. You must ensure, though, that your studies, your online classes that you take, are not more than 50% of your studies. Say, for example, you do 15 courses for your entire program. I would say safely that you might do 4 or 5 courses online and not extend beyond the 50% range, because this will make you ineligible to get a post-graduation work permit if it is that you go ahead and you study more than 50% of your courses online. This measure allows students to do less than 50% of their courses online and ensure that you stay within this limit of less than 50%. There may be a negative impact if you do 50% or more of your studies online. So keep your studies, the number of courses that you do in an online mode, to less than 50%. This temporary measure goes up until the 1st of September 2024. So the final thing I want to talk to you about is the proof of your acceptance. One of the most important documents that you need for your study permit application is your letter of acceptance, your LOA. You have to prove to IRCC that you have been accepted into an institution in Canada that is authorized to grant degrees and certifications for international students. There is a case, an ongoing case, where international students back in 2018 to 2019 from a particular country, they got forged letters of acceptance and submitted them to IRCC. They were undetected that the documents were fraudulent, and the international students were accepted. They got their study permits, many of them finished their programs, and they were ready to apply for permanent residency. It was detected that their letters of acceptance were fraudulent, and there was an investigation to find out who were genuine students that really did not know that their letters were forged, and the ones that actually had knowledge that their letters were fraudulent. These students used an agency or an agent or a service to get their study permits done. So as of December 1, 2023, international students will have to go through an additional validity check to check that their documents are actually legit. Starting December 1, 2023, international students, their applications will now go through another validity check to check that their letters of acceptance are valid. And let me read directly from the IRCC's website. Starting December 1, 2023, your school will be asked to confirm the validity of your letter of acceptance. In my mind, that may slow down the processing of your application, but it is an important step to prevent what happened some years ago, where letters of acceptance that were fraudulent were submitted to IRCC and approved for the students to get study permits. So an important note from the IRCC's website states that your school must provide you with a letter of acceptance, a LOA, include the original or the electronic copy of your letter with your study permit application. If your school does not respond within the allotted time, your application will be returned and your processing fees will be refunded. Confirm with your school that they will validate your letter of acceptance before submitting your application. So before this policy came into place, this was not something from my understanding, that IRCC usually does. They would go to the school to say, this individual submitted a letter of acceptance from your institution. Can you validate that this letter is real? Some schools might not have the capacity. I don't know. For whatever reason, IRCC is saying to you as the aspiring international student is to check with your school to ensure that they will be able to validate your letter of acceptance to IRCC within the allotted time. I'm unsure what this allotted time will be, but just make sure that you go the extra mile to ensure that your school does whatever they need to do to respond to IRCC in a timely manner to validate that your letter of acceptance is actually real. It came from them and it is a valid letter of acceptance. I want to thank you for sticking to the end of this video. Thank you for liking this video. Thank you for taking the time to share the video with someone that may benefit from the information in relation to the various changes to Immigration International Student Program for Canada. Remember to subscribe to my channel as well as to hit that post notification bell so that when I post another video, you will be informed. Thank you so much for making it through Nikki's Lens, and I'll see you in my next video.